That was excellent timing once again.
I narrowly got saved from being yelled at by Adam Brook. So yes, thank you. The intros.
Rick is obviously here. Mr. Hashbash is here. We are joined by Ida Pearlie from Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, and we'll make an announcement, describe a new broadcast that should be starting pretty soon. We're going to get joined by some other people. We got a lot of stuff to kind of go through today, but it's all good. So before we get too much into it, before I forget, let's challenge Rick's voice against this really loud music that I haven't fixed yet with our sponsors.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by the Botanical Company, Relenting Cannabis, Real Leaf Solutions, Detroit Nutrient Company, GoGreenMI.com, Custom 420 promos plus Culture Clothing.
Good job, Rick. I could hear that one. So, also at some point today, last night on Medical Mondays, we talked about an event coming up on the southwest side of the southwest corner of the state called, is it called Big Cloud?
No, that's the name of the production company. It's called Cashmere.
That's right. The event is called Cashmere, and Big Cloud is putting it on.
Correct.
I see a Led Zeppelin reference maybe there. And we're joined by Trent McCurren from Wellflower and Scout. We'll talk to him in just 1 second. But today during the show, there's also an event coming up in Ypsilanti here, a licensed event called Reggae on the River. And I've been authorized to give up 2 tickets for that. And I'm thinking about tying that into maybe having somebody do some proactive contacting of their state rep and request a no vote on House Bill 5512, which we're going to try to get more information about during the show today too, and encourage more to do that. That's a shitty bill that we've talked about many times on here. We'll get back to it. It's probably going to get called up, or very likely to get called up for a vote pretty soon, and we need to do what we can do to oppose it. But let me introduce Trent McCurren here. Hey, Trent, how you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, man. So Wellflower retail store. It's a few locations around the state. I've been to the one in Manistee, very beautiful, and one just opened up in Ypsilanti.
That's right.
And there's going to be hosted by you and Great Lakes Expungement Network, and working with the city and the county. There's going to be an expungement fair there. We want to get that information out and have you let us know a little bit about the new store and that event.
Yeah. So good to see all these familiar faces on here. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Trent.
So yeah, we opened our new store in Ypsilanti on April 9th. That was our grand opening. It's on 1820 Washtenaw Avenue, so a pretty busy street there. But yeah, we're happy to be in Ypsilanti. It's got a pretty good track record of cannabis support, I would say, at least in the last few years. So we're happy to join that culture. And the other cool thing we've kind of done there is we partnered with another nonprofit organization called We the People Opportunity Farm, which helps to break the cycle of incarceration. So people who are formerly incarcerated can come out of the justice system, the criminal justice system, and acquire skills to be able to get back into the workforce, et cetera. And I bring that up because it just works so nicely with the how we got started there in Ypsilanti, because we are actually the only operating social equity license in Ypsilanti. So, and also one of the few that's locally owned. So that just made sense then to host this expungement fair, given the work we're doing with the We the People Opportunity Farm. You're kind of on both sides of the coin, right? We're helping them when they get out, but also helping them, people with evictions, to be able to get back into the workforce as well. So yeah, the event Jamie you're talking about and Jamie's help plan is an expungement clinic that we're doing with the Great Lakes Expungement Network and Josie Scoggins to help people clear their cannabis convictions. And so that's on May 1st, which is Law Day. It's from 12 to 4. People can pre-register. That helps the process move a little faster, but not absolutely required, but it does help. And they can pre-register at scoutcanna.com/expunge. That's where the registration form is. And the city of Ypsilanti is helping out by waiving fingerprinting fees for a good period of time. So we appreciate that. And they're helping to sponsor the event. And then the last part of the event is that it's also the launch of the Scout Cannabis times Great Lakes Expungement Network collaboration.
I was going to bring that up, but yeah, thank you for transitioning into. I know that you've done some work with Franklin Fields over the years, it has been that long.
Yeah.
In the past, let's say, and building up that product a lot and coming up with a lot of good ideas, and you've chosen now to kind of like cross promote it or present it with the intent of helping out the Glen organization.
That's right. Yeah. So it's the event. Obviously, we're doing the event, the Wellflower, but then also this product will be a permanent part of the portfolio, and it's raising money to go back towards Great Lakes Expungement Network. So we'll be giving money after each quarter and try to keep their coffers as full as we can. So the more people that buy concentrate, the more money that goes to Great Lakes Expungement Network. So you'll be able to find it pretty easy in stores. It's a bright orange box. It says Scout and Great Lakes Expungement Network on it. Very clear which one it is and what cause you're supporting when you buy it. And
it costs anywhere between $500 and $1,300 to get somebody who's eligible to have their record expunged.
Right.
So funds are desperately needed. There are many, many, many applicants, and not as many funds to match all those. So yeah, that's the side we're kind of working on, and it's very much appreciated. And look forward to being there and participating in that and helping out. I got to visit that store too a little while ago, and it's just quite awesome. So great job on everything, and we really appreciate partnering with you. And I know that Josie, and it's Josie Scoggin, very much so appreciates it too.
Sorry.
And
sorry, Josie.
it's okay. It's okay. Everybody should know though.
Yeah.
It's Josie like Wales, not like the Pussycats.
So it's Josey. Or is it Josey? I got it wrong. I'm an idiot. Okay.
Josey. Yeah.
Jesus, I'm an idiot. All right, let me get this right.
You corrected someone else incorrectly, then.
Yes, I did. But I corrected the thing that was incorrect, but I then added another thing that was incorrect. Like, this is how we do it, and everybody should know this.
That's it. Yep.
And in fact, Homegrown just put out a product it's a flower called Josie, and spelled this as like this, and Josie was very excited about that.
Cool.
Because it was correctly spelled.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons. Yeah. So this is it. This is exactly how we want to do it, and this is correct. And of course, Josie is the whole driving force behind that.
That's right. She's the real rock star. We get to do the easy part and make cannabis, and she gets to help people in ways that we can't. But we're glad to help out.
Right on. Right on. And we're joined by Trish Matson too. Thanks for joining us, Trish.
Hi, how you doing? Good.
Be pretty heavily in on the legislative discussion, I would hope and assume, because we got some serious stuff to talk about. Trent, I know you got some other stuff you have to go to, and you came on early because of schedule and stuff like that. But we'll have you back on so we can, talk a little bit more about stuff and get a little deeper into what's going on. But are you familiar with House Bill 5512 by chance?
Only through you, Jamie.
Okay, well, we still hate it. And any help to be in opposition is much appreciated.
Absolutely, yeah.
So hey, welcome to hang out, be a part of this discussion as long as you have time. But I just wanted to make sure that we got that in so you can make your other meetings and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll have to jump. We're actually doing a CEO roundtable with the West Michigan Cannabis Guild at 5, so we got to head over there to do that. But do want to say thank you for having us on, especially thank you to all you guys who have been in the activist game for a long time. I say often we ride on your shoulders. The Michigan market wouldn't be at the size and I would say maturity it is without the caregiver market that got us all here. So it's important to recognize that and to help those folks the way.
Right on. Thanks a lot, Trent, man. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
We'll see you soon.
Jamie and I just attended a meeting recently, the West Michigan Cannabis Guild, and they were very generous, very welcoming. It was a wonderful experience, and I absolutely liked Tammy Vandenberg's place down there in Grand Rapids.
Pyramid Scheme, and that's a perfect name for the place where whatever the pyramid. What's the name of that? Amway.
Amway.
Where Amway came from.
Mm-hmm. But we're not saying it's a pyramid scheme, but Amway is what you're referring to.
Multi-level marketing.
Right.
A pyramid scheme sounds cooler for a name of a bar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Might start a fight in West Michigan. You start talking about pyramid scheme.
But very good people at the Western Michigan Cannabis Guild. And in fact, I'll be meeting with some of those people tomorrow also.
Yep. Yeah.
Lots of
Just
stuff
like
in Grand Rapids.
Yep, Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, is another one of these great ones. We talked about Ida being on the show.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of trade associations that have really made positive impacts. And sometimes the discussion that we have on the show tends to be negative towards the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association. But that's just, again, a separate trade association from the others that are actually doing good work with their membership and in their areas.
Right on. So Ida is the deputy director of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association.
Mm-hmm.
I am.
Also has hosted the podcast, the Canacast, that has come, from that organization.
Mhm.
And here today, in part, of course, you're welcome to be a part of the entire discussion as much as you'd like to participate. And we're going to talk about stuff that you know about for sure.
Mhm.
But you are starting a new show.
I am. So I've been starting Light a Joint Facebook live videos, and I'm getting ready to transition that into Light a Joint podcast with Ida, where I sit down and I interview women as we are talking about what we're rolling, and women in cannabis. I want to.
That's cool.
Yeah, we need more recognition. So that'll be Mondays at 11 a.m. Every week.
That's a good time.
I just want to say,
Good.
for whatever it's worth, it may not be widely known, but I've seen a lot of very important women participate and contribute to this whole movement ever since I've been involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
So to get the word out is great, but there's certainly been some great contributions along the way.
Right. Yeah. It's important to capitalize, and to show what we've all done, and nothing against, your show, but again, it's just, I want to, have women on and celebrate, women in cannabis.
Well, we like to celebrate middle-aged white guys around here.
Right. I mean,
Speak
we
for
all have our-
I'm down with Ida's show.
Yeah.
I've been trying to put a show on with women for years, but it just hasn't worked out.
Come on
Well,
over.
Yeah. Fact is that nowadays podcasting has become so available that to have a specialty show really means that you can, feature subject material that's close to your heart. And I think you do better work. We all do better work when we do work that we really feel strongly about. And I also think it's important to get those stories recorded and available for people to watch, because oftentimes if they don't tell their story to the camera on a podcast, that story just gets forgotten. It's just somebody's memory. It's not a piece of history.
And speaking of middle-aged white guys,
Right.
Hey, I'm here.
Hi, Paul.
That's an introduction right there.
Finally, I'm not the only one saying it. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. Well,
Attorney Paul Tylenda.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that you mentioned earlier to me about the show, Ida, that I really liked a lot, and I was been discussing a similar show too, in the subject matter, in which the background and the connection and the setting is sitting down and having a joint and highlighting, this other woman who's in the industry and that type of thing. But you're going to talk about stuff that's just interesting. It doesn't necessarily have to specifically be a cannabis subject or
Right.
topic, and just things that other people may want to join in a discussion about.
Yep. Yeah.
like that.
I'm excited. Thank you. I'm really excited to do this. So it's something new.
Right on. And we're going to be seeing there's a graphic image that you're working on to start promoting
Yeah.
it. And we'll be seeing
Yeah.
that before too long.
Yep. I'll get that out. And then, so I'll be on Facebook and then also on YouTube through StreamYard. Just got that set up today.
Right on.
I'm looking forward to it, Ida.
Thank you.
What's the launch date? What's your first show?
Monday. So May 3rd, or is it 2nd? May
Monday
2nd.
2nd.
Yep. May 2nd at 11.
It'd be,
And my
this-
my first guest is going to be Robin
that's
Schneider.
that's what I was going to ask,
Alright.
and that's very appropriate.
Yes.
And I really hope that at least you start the show off by discussing how your efforts were instrumental in stopping 5512 from getting enough votes on the House floor. And it's a little bit of a celebratory tone to get started with.
Oh yeah.
It's really close. The votes are close. We need to pour it on. And I don't know, Rick, do you mind kind of recapping 5512 for people real quick, and then we'll try to see if we can get some people to help us.
Certainly, in the Michigan court system, we have people that are on probation or parole situations, or in other ways they're still in control of the Bureau of Prisons or on bond, and oftentimes judges will deny them the opportunity to use their doctor-prescribed medical marijuana or doctor-recommended medical marijuana while they're on probation or on bond. So in 2021, Michael Toohey and Michael Comorn won a case against the state, which really reset the law for all of the medical marijuana patients, stating that the court had to respect that medical marijuana recommendation just as they would respect any additional prescription medication too. Well, the drug courts think that they're special and they want a unique carve out, let's just call it, within the law itself. They want to be able to deny people the opportunity to use medical marijuana if they opt to go to drug court. And so they're using the legislature to craft a carve out against the Toohey decision that we just got. And that carve out was 5512 that would allow them the opportunity to still deny them the use of medical marijuana, just like they deny them the use of alcohol and even sometimes, as Jamie and I learned, tobacco. That's how controlling these drug courts are.
We learned that from the judge, but that still wasn't confirmed. That seemed like more of a simple retaliatory kind of a statement to your inquiry, but it was kind of funny. It was so Rick just asked, so what about tobacco? He's like, oh yeah, we've banned that before. He's like, are you serious? You really have? Under what circumstances did you tell somebody they couldn't use tobacco? He goes, well, it wasn't me. It's some other court, and then just kind of moved on from there.
But the fact of the matter is, you're looking at a drug court who's for a long time operated outside of the normal realms of courtroom behavior, and they use a lot of justifications for it. It's voluntary, blah, blah, blah. They have a special federal designation, whatever. The bottom line is the law now currently says, according to the Court of Appeals, basically you have to respect the medical marijuana recommendation, and they don't want to. So we got a bill trying to pass it. It's already passed out of committee. It faces now a vote of the full House of Representatives. Once it passes there, it'll go on to the Senate. But it seems like the pathway through the Senate will be a much easier one than the pathway through the House was.
This is the opportunity that you can go to Michigan.
Oh, Trish is like, don't be so sure.
There's a lot of other things building up on that right now, actually. So there are a lot of House bills sitting right now, especially when it comes to opioids and harm reduction. And there's a lot. So there's been a TIVAR bill, and it actually, I believe, passed in the Senate yesterday. And Mary Whiteford was actually working on the same thing in the House. So what this recommends or says to do, that they need to create a Michigan Opioid Healing and Recovery Fund. They also need to create an advisory commission. And they also want that advisory commission to be picked by the House as well. So to me, I kind of feel like that specifies that what those are there for aren't really doing as well as they should be if they have to create a committee for it. And considering the fact that there, like I said, there's funding coming in from the federal government and from the states, and they're also getting money from most of the people that are going through the program. But on average right now, there's 77 courts, I think now. On average, like 11 people, if you took across the entire state, 11 people are making it through those programs. So I think it's a race for the money, really.
Very much.
Yeah, I think it's a race to the money, because if these pass before that happens, it doesn't look like it would exist anyway. So I'm looking some more, but I've been at it for like 2 days. So
much appreciated. Thanks for that info.
Go ahead, Paul. Jump on in here.
I was going to say, when you talk about these things getting close to a vote, to me, I'll always go into the House fiscal analysis. And when you get the fiscal analysis, typically I've always put that as to like it's the paper that you would give to your dad when you want some money, right? It's the nuts and bolts, simple, like, why is this good and bad, pro and con, what's the ins and outs of this? Give me this straight up, give me like sort of the 1 or 2 page version as to why you want this money, or give me the quick and dirty as to what impact this is going to have on my wallet, right? Hey, kid, you want to go make this choice? How is this going to affect, dad's pocketbook, right? So in the legislative analysis here, this for me might be the let's say part of the reason for legislative success is not the message, but how they portray the message, how they couch the interest, right? So in the legislative analysis, they start off in the very top says laws inconsistent with the Medical Marijuana Act. So they're taking this and essentially saying, okay, well, the bill, and this is in the language here, it says the bill seeks to address how to reconcile the laws with specialty treatment courts and the use of medical marijuana by registered patients. And it deals with the conflict that says the MMA supersedes any other law, right? This is the superiority provision that says anything inconsistent
clause,
with this. That's right.
Which solves the problem itself. But
it does, and that's what this seeks to address. It ultimately brings in to say that they're going to add in, this is the content of the bill, is they'll say that the Medical Marijuana Act everything still applies, but the bill would add an exception to provide that the Medical Marijuana Act is inconsistent with any of these parts, and this would apply. And this has to do with drug treatment courts, mental health courts, juvenile mental health courts, and veteran treatment courts. And they make the distinction here to say that it's not about the ability of a probationer to use marijuana. They're not going to get into that they touch on TUI and saying that that's what's allowed. But they're essentially going in here to say that specialty courts, they undergo greater oversight from the judges and must adhere to stricter set of conditions during the probationary period. And they're saying this stricter probationary period, these specialty courts generally reduce recidivism. And it also gives it to say that, the judges have this special control to give them an order to abstain from alcohol, illegal drugs, unless a doctor's prescribed for other drugs or controlled substances. So it ultimately gives the ability for the judge to say, and this is where they mention it in here, passage of this bill would give treatment court judges discretion to allow the use under a doctor's supervision of medical marijuana by a defendant who is a qualifying registered patient under the MMA and who is in compliance with the Act. This would allow those participants who benefit from medical marijuana to remain eligible for enrollment in a specialty treatment court program. A judge could look at each case on its merits to see if it's an appropriate medical treatment or if there are other equivalent or appropriate medical treatments available. And here we go from now we have this good,
judges being the doctor.
Exactly right. We end up with this great intent, and now the judge gets the call.
But
and bring in the doctor to court.
So is this committee now too that they're getting ready to create. That's what it's mind blowing to me that they're going to take it from a judge and put it into a committee of their peers. I don't know.
Well, right. This goes back to judges practicing law or practicing medicine from the bench. And this is where if you get the right doctors involved, you can say, okay, judge, you first, and I'm going to take notes just like a lawyer would take notes for somebody practicing law without a license. And then say, okay, well, now you have this conflict. You know nothing about my patient. You've done no analysis. You've done no record review. You've done nothing that would even create a bona fide patient relationship, doctor-patient relationship here. So how come you can hold me to a different standard than this court can make a decision on?
the problem is they're doing that and have been for years and are still doing it in the face of TUI. And
but TUI could have an influence on that, and they're trying to circumvent that.
Correct. Well, what they're trying to do is codify in law the fact that they are not practicing medicine without a license, that they are doing what the law now allows them to do, which currently they can't do. And unfortunately, nobody is going after any judge for doing this. You know, there is no penalty for this behavior. Just like Oakland County was never held accountable for preventing people from mentioning the word medical marijuana. I mean, come on, you know how many convictions they got because of that?
Right. And you're touching on something very important, Adam, is to say that when you allow for judicial discretion, right, and you codify judicial discretion, it essentially says, here are the rules, and then dad gets to decide whatever. So it doesn't hold the decisions to a standard.
Well, the fiscal agency description that you just read presupposes that the court already has the ability to say no, and that this new legislation would create the option for them to say yes. So is there something contained within TUI which would not apply in some way towards drug court, and that they were actually creating a new opportunity that currently doesn't exist? Because to our understanding, they would be mandatorily required to accept medical marijuana and not be allowed to forbid it from those participants.
Right. They're supposed to have immunity. And it's just showing the card demonstrates bona fide doctor-patient relationship and a qualifying condition. Yeah, and then that shouldn't be discriminated against for entering and taking advantage of the specialty courts, and it shouldn't be discriminated once participating in the specialty courts, and that solves the problem. They in their minds need that extra power.
I know, and of course they know they win whenever they make people bring doctors into court, because it never works out for the people. Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, because this it creates the interesting standard is to say, okay, with what information will the judge be making this decision as to whether or not this person is worthy enough to carry forward, right? Is this a factual analysis of the individual themselves, or are we getting into something that, to me, this kind of sounds like a specialty court is now holding a Section 8 hearing. And that might, for as
an old school one where they intimidated the doctors and tried to create these impossible standards. And
Section 8 is the portion of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act which allows us for an affirmative defense, which means you can say, even though my activity fell outside the guidelines of the law, I have a reason for doing so, and that reason is my very, very real medical condition.
You meet certain rungs, right?
Exactly right. So when we say Section 8, that's the one thing that we had in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act that would allow us to offer a defense for people that had more than 12 plants or more than 2.5 ounces, which is arbitrary decisions.
I was a big proponent and have for years used my primary care physician to sign my medical marijuana paper.
And that's always been stronger in the courts than just somebody who's kind of specializing in it, But
correct. And I've always encouraged people to find a doctor who was willing to do that, because I believed that it gave you a stack of medical records that you literally can't deny. I mean, that's your doctor. Here's your records. He's always approved your medical marijuana use. And now with the way the computer system works, once it's put into your profile, it doesn't disappear either. So any doctor I ever check into, when they print up the drugs I'm on, it says medical marijuana, copious amount. But
hey, so we're also here joined by Eric Parkhurst from Winewood Winewood Organics. I'm sorry, right there.
Yeah, hi you guys.
How you doing, man? So we're going to get into it a little bit, but I wanted to bring you in. Are you familiar with what we're talking about? House Bill 5512?
Not too much, no.
Okay, just curious because we've been in opposition. We've discussed it on here a few times. It's close to maybe be considered to actually pass, and at least the House, go further on in the process, and so we're kind of getting into why it's shitty and we oppose it and stuff like that. So
okay, yeah, I've been listening for the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
So yeah, appreciate you guys, advocating for patients' rights and all of that.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Yeah. Adam brought up a very important point, which was the legitimacy of your medical marijuana card. When 2009 rolled around and we all got our cards, we thought they were the ultimate fuck you, that, a cop could pull up and our windows would be rolled down and smoke rolling out like Chong, and we just hold the card up and they had to walk away, right? That's what we thought the card meant.
Immunity, man. Yeah.
They don't do that.
That wasn't true. So what we learned is that the many ways that they tried to assail patients and caregivers at that particular time, they were very devious. At one point, with a place in Hazel Park, they actually police officers made fake medical marijuana cards in order to gain access to the place because they couldn't gain access otherwise. At the agro location, it was torturous. But importantly, though, one of the devious ways that they had to undo us in court was to bring in a doctor and make a doctor testify that you absolutely had no other medical option but cannabis to suit your particular illness. Paul, you were required by the court to do this on more than one occasion, and it's an incredibly undue burden to the person being prosecuted, because not all doctors have a whole day to spend in court. Not all can, and if they do, they charge you, and it's astronomical. Isn't that been your experience?
And they're not always, let's just say that what they say on the bedside doesn't always translate to what they say in the courtroom. Yeah. And that's a lot of times because they start to harden up once the spotlight's on them, and that's always been the trick, right? That was the trick in Oakland County, was to scare the doctors with all kinds of repercussions and get them to clam up. The part that, and I think about this in perspective, is that out of the handful of Section 8 cases Section 8 defenses that I've flown, I don't know if any of them have ever had the same standard from the one before or to the next, because of the fun little change and shift and some of the burden shifting and some of the little technique approach to the Section 8 hearing. I can remember the last one I did, when I told the judge, I said, if the prosecutor asks any questions at all of my clients, it's an admission to a challenge or an issue of fact, and I get the defense. So if they have questions, I'm granted my Section 8 hearing right out of the gate, because they're challenging what I have to say. It's an issue of fact. And one prosecutor bought it, and the judge didn't rule against me anyway. So it's like you couldn't, there was really no clean formality in a way. And it was, the success that you would have on some of these Section 8s were, few and far between, because it was often the case that if you were, let's say, if you were going to have success in a Section 8 with that judge, you probably were going to have success with other motions leading up to that Section 8 that would have had you been able to avoid the Section 8, right? Motions to dismiss, all types of other motions that would say, okay, well, I get the benefit of the doubt as a defendant, and so you kind of knew that when you flew up all the flags against that judge and your Section 8 was your last stand, oftentimes they'd find a way to dance between the raindrops of your arguments. But
well, Paul, the truth of the matter is that judges like to advance court cases quickly through their system, and the Section 8 appeal takes days, if not weeks, sometimes, and stretches these things out. And oftentimes, judges have a tendency to punish people as to whether or not they have resisted courtroom prosecution. Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. We just got to start switching gears here for a minute. I mean, Eric's got the proper headgear on to begin his interview.
No rush. Take your time.
And no, it's okay, man. I mean, I am interested in this, and we'll return to this and some other stuff going on in the legislature and stuff like that. But I do want to hear about. I'm really interested in how the micro business itself, how that's playing out. The fact that you're in Ann Arbor, the background that you have leading up to doing it in this way, and just check on to see how it's kind of unfolding for you. There seems to be some obstacles, some challenges, with that scenario, but it also seems like you got a really nice situation going on over there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I started off in the medical, on the medical side of things. My partner, Becca, has a blood clot in her head and has horrible migraines because of that, and found relief from cannabis after being prescribed opiates and all of that stuff, and found that cannabis worked out better for her. And so we moved to Michigan from Minnesota about 10 years ago, so that we could, so that I could grow plants for her legally here. And and started doing that, and started taking on patients and growing for additional patients other than Becca. And eventually I was in the building that I'm operating the micro business out of. I was actually taking care of my patients out of this same building before licensing and up to actually right up to licensing. So So yeah,
this is kind of the image that people
thing
had when this system was designed, was that somebody would kind of like transition from the caregiver thing into this.
Perfect story, right?
Out there,
that hasn't happened that often, but here's an example.
Right. Yeah. There's not too many, there hasn't been too many micro businesses. I don't know. It's a tough model. We're required to grow all of our own product in-house on site. We're allowed to do any processing that we want, and we're required to sell all of our product right here in the front. We have a small retail space. The whole building's about 5,000 square feet, so we have 3 small grow rooms, small processing lab and kitchen, and a little retail space up front. So we're on the west side of Ann Arbor. And yeah, we're adult use, so we take care of medical patients, and we take 10% off to take care of the additional tax that is incurred in the adult use. But yeah, so we can take care of both medical, both people with medical licenses, but also just the adult use market in general. So
right, yeah, awesome, man. So what about there's a new in the rules, new form of a micro license to help. The point was to help to try to give a little bit different of an angle for being able to purchase some product outside of the contained system. Have you looked at that as something that you think might work better, or is what you have going on here the route that you're gonna be most functional with?
I could see how it would be beneficial to be able to take in product from processors like that. I think they also are allowing them to grow 300 plants. The micro business license that I have only allows us to grow 150 plants. But for me, I like to be able to do, we have full processing lab where we do everything from hash and rosin to hydrocarbon extracts and the cartridges and distillate that goes into our gummies and all of that. And so, I think being able to do everything in house gives us an advantage. And for me, that's half of the enjoyment of it is the processing and that whole side of things. And so yeah, I'm not interested in that one necessarily. But I think it would be beneficial, for us. We opened up with just 2 strains and 2 concentrates. And so, then we had to slowly build out all of our product line. And so that would really help, probably to be able to bring in, because we just got edibles on the shelf 2 months ago after being open for 6 months. And so, we missed a whole bunch of customers. And so being able to take product in from, I guess, like-minded companies, might be an advantage, but yeah, it's just not for me.
150 plants is a tough one, Eric, right?
Yeah.
Tough conversation.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's difficult. And then, just, if anything happens in the grow room and we fail a crop, we don't have any product, we can't just supplement by buying in product from other shops like most other retailers can do. So, we're really reliant on the grow rooms for all of our products. So
when we talk about opening up the axe to make some changes, it's stuff like this to make this system a little bit more sensible. Even if you're in a situation where inventory is an issue because of any number of things, there should be a recourse, for fixing that or staying in business somehow. Maybe under certain conditions you can buy from certain things or whatever it is. I'm not sure how restrictive it really needs to be.
Yeah, letting micro businesses transfer product between ourselves might be a good option. Yeah.
Paul was trying to get in here a second ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Eric, I'm gonna ask you it seems like the glaring issue, right, for anybody that wants to get into a micro business or is thinking about it, is the concern of being self-sufficient, right? To being, essentially an island when it comes to your own inventory. Can you shed some light on the maybe the approach, the mentality, or some of your psychology as to, like you said, you have a crop fail and you're out, or you have a really good week and now you're out. what do you tell yourself? What do you discuss with the team in terms of like this possibility that you might just not have flower one day and you might have to wait? How do you work through that? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I suppose we haven't got to that point yet. So, it seems like, I guess, selling out, if that was the case, the business would be doing pretty well based on how much we're producing and all of that. So, I don't know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I don't think that we would ever run out of, all products, having, concentrates and edibles and flower, and all of that. But yeah, so the garden is the most important, the most important job, because we need to continue to produce product. And so it's just, we go above and beyond to make sure that the environment is controlled, and having a smaller garden is actually, advantageous, because we're in the gardens twice a day. We're checking on plants. We walk by each plant, twice a day, and we'd have like a hybrid watering system, where each plant is checked manually and lifted to see if it needs water or not. And then there's a valve at each plant, that will turn to allow it to either be watered or not watered. And so we don't have a fully automated system. And so we're just on it, and we just, we produce enough so far to meet the demand. So
you're surrounded by like 25 retail stores. Is there another micro business in Ann Arbor, or you're it, I think, right?
Yeah, we're it so far in Southeast Michigan. So
right, okay.
There's a couple other, I know there's a couple out west and a couple north, and I know that there's some caregiver guys caregiver people groups that are working on getting others set up in the area too. But for now we're it. But there is a lot of, we're in competition with the dispensaries in town here. And like you said, there's 25 of them, and there's,
and then of course HC and surrounding areas have got them too.
Right. Yeah. So we have the advantage of, we're completely independent. So we only, you can only get our products here. We don't have any other outside owners or interests, and we're surrounded by, I think the 4 closest shops are all corporate. Most of them are being bought up by corporate companies, and so we have the advantage. We grow all of our product in organic living soil, and so we have people that appreciate the independent aspect, or the fact that everything is all natural, and so we actually take the time to hand trim all of the flower, and we do all of the terpene tests on all of our products, which is above and beyond what's required at the state, just so that we have that information to help guide customers and medical marijuana patients in the right direction. We're trying to do it a little bit different. We're trying to be, bring more of that caregiver aspect into the adult use cannabis market.
And along with products that are probably consistently of the higher quality and flavor and essence and presentation and all the things that you do more craft style in that environment. There's more in the special attention that you pay to the plants and all those other, your experience and all the things that come together to be able to provide that. I mean, I put this up there before, but you get people who really care about the quality of their medicine, like Spartan. And he's saying, you guys got some great shit. I mean, that's the reputation that you get. That's kind of the niche that you have to have in that environment. It seems like you're providing. Somebody goes there, they know they're going to get something that was created with passion for the whole system and culture and understanding of it. And, it's going to be a consistently, great product.
Hey, the lemon slushy sauce is just a title that makes me want to try it out. I don't even care what it is.
Hey, Eric, where are you located, and when is your store open?
So we're on the west side of Ann Arbor, right across the street from Kroger. We're open every day. open at 11 till 9 on the weekdays, and we're till 8 on Saturday, and then 11 till 6 on Sundays. So yeah, and I think we have product that smells like it should. People come in. We have a Durban poison that's original landrace genetics. We're doing things like just making old school bubble hash. Nobody else had it on the market, and we only found that out. Our customers kept telling us about, nobody has bubble hash, and so, we walked to the back and we whipped up some bubble hash and got it tested, and we had it on the shelf the next week. And so we're trying to do it different, and avoiding as the race to the bottom continues. It seems like the quality is getting worse and worse, and we're trying to give people another option for high quality cannabis. So we end up getting a lot of people that are currently growing or used to grow and say, hey, that's what my shit looked like when I used to grow, and so yeah, we're trying to be that option for people.
Right on.
Great.
It's all about the craft cannabis at this point.
Well, in the relationship, because you're actually talking to your customer base, your patients, you're having a relationship with them. They're coming specifically to your store because they like you, they like the model, they like what you're doing. I mean, that's difficult to replicate in some of these turn them and burn them kind of retail environments, though. Yeah, totally. We had a customer that was coming in because we make our sauce into cartridges, and we had a customer come in and say he was dumping out our sauce from our hardware, from our cartridges, and putting them in new hardware. And I thought he was like an undercover cartridge salesman at first, but after like the third time he came in, I asked him to swap me out one of those and let me try it, and the difference was incredible. And so we ended up swapping, getting new hardware, and it's amazing. And it's one step better than what we used to have. And so just being able to do that and work directly with our customers, is an advantage. We have a lot of disadvantages in being able to get the word out about. It's tough. Advertising is tough, and all of the avenues are pretty congested and pretty competitive with all the other big shops. And we have another disadvantage in our batch sizes with our testing. We have to test all of our products just like all the other licensed shops do. But they're allowed to test up to 50-pound flower batches, whereas sometimes we have a 2-pound flower batch, and we're paying the same testing fee that the big guys are paying. And so we do all of our testing at PSI Labs, who's been awesome, and I've been working with them since really the week they opened for all of my caregiver stuff. And so yeah, continuing to work with those guys have been awesome, but the challenges are there. They have to run all the same tests, and so people expect us as craft cannabis to do like all these cool small batch craft stuff, and it's really difficult to be able to do that without having any distribution. If we had the option to kind of do some craft stuff, sell it in the shop, but also wholesale it out like the craft breweries model that this was kind of based on, then it would be a lot easier for us to do that, kind of stuff.
Those are the kind of changes that if we're going to talk about opening the act to make changes, those are kind of sensible things that should be at the basis of the discussion. So people are asking about your location again. Would you go over your location, and I'll put it up here too?
Yeah, cool. It's 2394 Winewood Avenue, Ann Arbor, and it's on the west side of Ann Arbor. So We've got it's a black building. We've got a bunch of flowers on the outside that my friend Christina painted before we opened. So
is that in the
can't miss it.
B building? Someone asked in the chat.
I think I know what you're talking about, and it's right up the street, right up South Maple from there. Okay. So yeah, about 2 parcels down.
All right.
Is that right?
2394 Winewood Avenue, Ann Arbor, West Side.
Yep, that's right.
I'm coming in for some bubble hash the next couple
I was going to say,
for sure.
I like that.
What's the from someone not from Ann Arbor, what do I do? Get off at State Street? Get off at Jackson? Where do I go?
A demand right now.
Yeah, you can get off at Jackson. Yeah, Jackson to Stadium to South Maple. So
I'll be there tomorrow. I got to be in Ann Arbor tomorrow, so I'll be there.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
Considering
I'll be here.
Nope, fantastic. What a great story. And thanks for broadcasting directly from the garden too. Always love seeing plants and hearing the hum of fans, knowing that the living things are being lovingly handled by experts, you know.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey man, hash is a hit. I know it was for me too, and we know Dennis, and he's kind of an old schooler in a lot of ways, and looks like he's coming in for some hash too.
All right.
So that's a good call.
All right, right on. We were just pressing up some pucks this morning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I hope you don't sell out after Adam leaves, because you know he might get there first.
No.
Here, I guess Ida just split. That's too bad. I was going to ask if you were affiliated with the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association.
Am I?
Yeah, just if your company has joined that industry
No, I'm
association.
not.
That'd be, if you're planning on doing that, that would be the
Yeah.
one. There's only a couple, and they are 350 plus members of a lot of people who transition from caregivers into the commercial.
Right.
And they typically help us with a lot of advocacy and opposition to bad bills, support for good bills, etc.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it.
Yeah.
And Adam from Detroit loves you.
Hey, Adam.
And encourages everybody to go see him. Yep. So
and there's Spartan. They've both been huge advocates for us.
Spartan has a lot of support and a lot of good critique of the product, which I think should be substantial. That's somebody who really pays attention and gives a shit about this stuff. And
these are connoisseurs. So
Ida reminding people about light a joint with Ida, and this is the deputy director of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. So,
who decided to leave before Jamie could ask you to join her organization because timing is everything. That's why.
Anyway, Eric, is there anything else you want to make sure people know and point to a site? Any flavors coming up? Anything like that to get in before we move on?
Yeah. Strange.
No. I mean, no. I just encourage people to. Obviously, I'm not up on the latest bills and all of that, but just encourage people to keep fighting for caregiver rights because a lot of the best growers and a lot of the best products still comes from the caregiver market, and we all kind of built this industry. So yeah.
Eric, I wanted to say before you go, my name is Trish Matson. I'm with Michigan Weedsters. I actually looked up your information when I got the invite for the podcast and looked into what you were doing. And the first thing that popped in my mind is that you are the perfect example of what should be available to patients and caregivers, as far as especially with people who need specialty medicine in particular. So I just want to let you know that is a super awesome opportunity for people out there to, come out and use your product. I'm going to encourage it a lot. So I think it's awesome. I read about who you were taking care of and how you were taking care of them too. And it's a pretty awesome thing that you're doing. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, thank you. We have all of our test results available behind the counter. We have all of our terpene analysis, a little breakdown with that to help people find the right strain for them. Marcus and Kim, who work up front in the retail side of things, are really well versed in all of that stuff. And yeah, we're here to help people. So
that's amazing. Very cool. I'm going to keep you on my list.
Is cool. Purple Trainwreck coming back soon?
Purple Trainwreck is coming.
All right.
It's coming. Yeah. Very excited about that.
Boy, it's an election year, so when you say the train wreck is coming, we just don't really know what you mean.
How many different strains do you have that you're?
So right now we have about 20.
Okay.
Those are all strains that I was growing back in the caregiver days and been, selected for that. And then, we're adding, we've got like 5 or 6 new strains in the building right now, just to keep them fresh and start trying to keep some variety. So we want to kind of keep around a certain set strains, just so people can have have the same thing or similar products when they come in, but also keep 5 or 6 rotating through to just to have some variety for the people that have tried everything. So
that makes sense.
Cool.
Right on. Well, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. And that is really interesting, and I'm happy for you. And
all right, cool. Yeah, no,
I'll be in for sure. I think a few people will now. So
sounds good. I'll be excited to meet you guys in person.
Right on.
Old school bubble hash hookup. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
We just did some peyote cookies that we pressed into hash pucks this morning. So you guys have to try that when you come in.
Hell yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So we've been joined by Anton Harb. Anton, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us in.
What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Doing great. I don't know if you got part of it, but Winewood Organics, a micro business under the old school micro business model in West Ann Arbor, doing great.
It's good to hear. It's good to see these business models like not even just surviving but thriving. So it sounds like I'm an old school hash guy myself. So people that are really putting their time and effort into the craft, that's where it's going to pay off, I think, with the hardcore.
Well, Eric brought it up, like there's this race to the bottom and, trying to get the cheapest product out. That goes on in a large part of the market. He maintains a high quality product, and where the situation has saturated the market in other states, the revival has been those demonstrating that they're willing to pay more for, higher quality product, and just maintaining that.
Just like any other industry. Look at the beer folks. I mean, Sam Adams versus Budweiser or any other craft product that you would see in any other industry. I think at the end of the day, that's where the respect really comes into play. People who are putting their time and effort into the craft and the art. This is art, really. At the end of the day, to me, these plants are artwork. They're each individually pieces of art, and that final product is a true expression of your skill. So kudos. It's cool.
Cool.
You're a botanical Van Gogh is what you are. Yes. Creating art. I think the reality is when you have people who are pencil pushers or who are just looking at the bottom lines, making decisions on large scale for cultivators, they decide things like hash might not be profitable, so let's not try it. Or we only want to produce plants that grow gigantic trees that give me X amount of pounds yield per square foot. And the specialty plants or the plants that are really some of the most medicinal simply don't fit that profile. And unfortunately, it means a lot of commercial establishments won't be producing the things that are so desperately needed by our medical patients, especially our pediatric patients. And that's really why we need to have micro businesses like Winewood, as well as a robust and thriving caregiver model in order to make sure that there's people out there that can take care of almost anyone's problem.
Well, it's amazing too. Like I think as things progress, I mean, we're losing some of the true OGs. Look at Frenchy Cannoli. Like we want to talk about bubble hash, like a true connoisseur, and we need folks that are willing to take all that information that was passed down and bring it to the market and bring it to people who don't know that, it's like Swiss chocolate. If you've never been to Switzerland and had the opportunity to try it, you know what I mean? You don't know what you're missing. And I think that's the same thing with craft flower and hash. And it's good to see those types of things still making their way into the market.
Yeah. Specialty product that only the connoisseurs know about. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say with the connoisseurs, I mean, we're all the same way as that. We always have this, there's strain chasing is like a ghost, right? Sometimes you see this strain, and you see this bag that you get, you're just like, oh my God, like you're intoxicated just from enjoying what it looks like, right? And then it seems to set that standard where you're kind of always chasing that same ghost where you're just like, man, it smells good and it looks great, but does it haunt you to the point you're just like, oh man, this is now the new standard? And that's where, guys like Eric and the connoisseurs come from, because they're preserving those, the classic strains. They're preserving things that and they're creating that standard, but they're doing it in such a way where it's, pot will grow itself, but to grow good pot and to grow, great pot and to grow pot that, as you talk about, does what it's supposed to do. There's a skill set behind that just isn't, let's just say to Eric's credit, can't necessarily be automated. Mm-hmm. So, it's nice to see that we still have like the heart and soul, and the analogy that I've been thinking about this whole conversation is you're the old butcher, right? You have the fresh, grass-fed, great cows that were treated right growing up, and we want to buy our meat from you because not only is it good business, but it's good quality, it's a good source. So
well, the other thing is, go ahead, Adam, please.
Oh, I was just going to say it's worth a little extra.
Yeah, sure is. With all the manipulated
drive.
Yeah.
And I would expect that at some point, some guy's going to grow 1 or 2 plants of some strain, and he's going to pull off a few ounces or a pound or whatever. And that's going to go for an outrageous amount of money in his shop because, well, he grew those 2 plants. They are what they are. That's what it is. You got to wait another 3 months for more. You want this or not? And
you know what?
Fair.
With all the manipulated strain names too, you can't count on Blue Dream in one place being the same as Blue Dream in another. But if it's always grown by the same guy, you can count on that. Please go ahead, Jamie.
That's right.
I was just about ready to remark upon how profound it is that Adam said he was going to come in there. I didn't think about that for a second, but Adam all the time talks about how he will not go into a dispensary.
All right, so I had been invited to tour the place and hadn't done it because I was busy with Hash Bash Cup. And I knew that I wanted to see this model because I grew up as a family retailer, and I was able to order product in from all over the world to sell to my community. But this is a little different, and I understand because when I grew up in the weed game, what it would be like for my buddies who were growing 12 or 20 or 50 plants to have a little stand out in front of their house. That would have been awesome for them. Instead, these guys were hiding out, scared to death that they were going to end up in fucking prison because of what they were doing. So now to be able to see what Winewood's doing out there as a business that's licensed by the state, all right, it may not be perfect. We all know that. But it's as close as you can come to not doing what the other guys are doing, and I mean, anybody can do this. That's the other thing. Anybody can do what Eric's doing if you have the knowledge on how to produce decent cannabis. It's designed for the common person.
But can everybody do it in a dark period in their grow room? I don't think so.
See the little green light in the back there.
You can even do it in the dark.
It caught me by surprise.
That's fantastic. We got it on video too. That's wonderful.
I think it's great to have this, and to be honest, I'm looking forward to more of them around the state. People can get it together and bring it to fruition.
We talked to Eric a little bit today about the advantages of the Class A micro, the 300 plants of being able to take in produced product from other people.
Other growers are concerned about the light poisoning from the phone. You're going to hermit your plants in there, man.
All right, I'll turn it around here.
Oh man! Oh my gosh!
Then Spartan can feel better.
Yeah, I was going to say if Spartan says it, you better do it because that guy knows what's going on. But the reality of the fact is that there may be more people in the micro business market now because of the new regs, and that's just a better thing for us. We've talked about 2022 being the year of great reckoning, as I've called it. There'll be a lot of consolidations. There'll be a lot of companies that just don't make it. If you have a business plan that was based on a $400 per ounce figure and you're getting 150 now, you are not going to be able to pay off your bills, and you're going to end up selling your property. And that's just the way
or
that
just raise another 30 million and then buy some more stores and stuff.
Yeah, kick your life debt down the road. But Eric, you guys seem to be doing pretty well though, right?
Yeah, Yeah, we're doing well. We're growing month over month, and we get new customers every month, and then once they find us, they end up sticking with us. So.
Right on. Well, Adam says he drives past several places and goes many miles to consistently. I mean, Adam Detroit. In the comments. So it is the 6% sales tax, the 10% excise tax, but you'll waive the 10% excise tax for those who are patients who have their card.
Yep.
And is that also for caregivers buying for patients? Would you waive the excise for? Okay.
Yep.
And
we still pay the excise tax. We just give them a 10% off.
Right. I got you. And some stores do that. I mean, there's even some regular retail stores do that too, but that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
And then as far as fees to get in,
we're open. So
as far as your licensing fees and things like that, somebody's asking about the taxes, which we just went over.
Totally.
Your licensing fees.
It's $8,000. It's an $8,000 a year licensing fee. So I went through. I wanted to do the cultivation, the processing, and the retail. In order to do all of those at the time, to get into the adult use, you first had to have all 3 licenses for medical. And so in order to do this would have been $168,000 a year in licensing fees for the 2 required retail, the 2 processing, and the 2 medical, or the cultivation. And this, we can do everything for $8,000 yearly expense, or license fee. So it's reasonable, it's reasonable in that regard for sure.
Right on. Good. Right on. All right, man. So I mean, we can continue to talk about this. I kind of wanted to get back on some more of the legislative discussion on some level. Eric, you're welcome to hang out and be a part of that conversation with us if you'd like to, and or if people still want to continue this conversation, I'm open to that too. Just before it got too deep into it. That's all.
5301's raised its ugly head, and Steve Linder's name is in the news again. So we should probably cover that.
The MCMA hired another
dirty second hour
PR firm.
Yes. Second hour.
And we still really want to encourage people to
call or write.
Yeah, to call or write your lawmakers today, tomorrow morning, and request no vote on House Bill 5512. It's called Winewood Organics.
Right.
See, Paul Young's probably
it is
right. Promise.
It's a micro business, and all micro businesses are a rec.
Right.
It comes from the MRTMA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. And if you're a patient, you get the excise tax waived, or caregiver buying for your patient, which is very cool.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure, man. And maybe we'll check in a little while and see how things are going too, and have you back on.
All right, sounds good. I'd love to.
Thanks, Eric.
Right on, man. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
See you, man. Bye.
That's fun.
Yeah.
You broadcasting from a dark cultivation room.
Yes, as long as he wants to hang out and participate, I wanted to foster that, but I also kind of want to keep moving with the conversation a little bit too. That's
it's a classic look.
One example of what was kind of envisioned. Dennis Shornack had it in the comments a little while ago, that what he was describing was what he was kind of envisioning being more of the common model, but
yeah.
In hindsight, very difficult to imagine that now being realized with all the big money interest influence.
Well, when the original, go ahead, Adam.
I just was going to say, I think if they would allow the transfer between licensees, okay, if they allowed the horizontal licensing,
trade within the micro businesses,
the micro business, if you could transfer product within the micro business, I think that would create such a boom in that I think you could get communities to opt into other things because of.
I agree.
The popularity of that one particular license. So
I'd like to see that. I would. I'm a little skeptical because Michigan's such a huge state, and when micro businesses locate, there's usually not more than one or two licenses in a particular area. So for meaningful transfer between those places, they might have to cover distance, and that's an additional expense. One of the things Eric talked about, which was a really important point, which we probably didn't spend as much time on as we should, was the cost of testing and how you're testing per batch. And a batch constitutes every single strain. So if the man's got 15 strains going on, he's going to have 15 test results for 150 plants.
You're right. And he brought up that other big cultivators a batch size, as long as testing has gone well or whatever, batch size could be up to 50 pounds just to make that more efficient. He's never going to be dealing in numbers like that with his plant counts.
No. So in that instance, the micro business license has an inherent disadvantage built into it, but he's still able to be successful despite that. And I just love that success story. That's just wonderful.
And I believe I believe, and I haven't looked into it, but I'm hoping that's because if it costs him more to do business, that his price reflects that. And if his quality backs it up, then the price isn't important. We all know that. We've been down this path for many, many years. Yeah. It used to be illegal when we were here. Now it's not. And if we got to pay a little more because the quality's better, we're used to that.
And we're used to old school ways of determining quality, when that's touching it, feeling it, smelling it. Those are the things we need, not necessarily a THC number, which might be inflated by a Viridis style testing laboratory who might have a history of artificially giving higher numbers in order to create greater marketability for product. I mean, sell it to me deli style, people. Let me get a sniff. Let me take a look at it. Let me see. Can I determine whether it's hand cured or hand trimmed or whether it's machine trimmed? Do I think that you ran it through a Keef machine before you give it to me? Right? Let's face it. We all know that this stuff happens. Is it terp enhanced? You know, let me make that own decision with my own senses. But the reality is that most oftentimes places nowadays are prepackaged, and that's just not an option available. So the only metric people sometimes use in order to determine quality is a THC number, and that's really bad. I happen to be at a place today where someone described that there's a retailer that will only accept cannabis of a certain THC level and nothing below.
That's all too common, man.
They want that in their identity. We're the 25 and up store because
it keeps that whole cycle of misinformation alive because the market wants it, so you do it. And then you try to go against it, try to get reality involved, and you lose market share. So you have to feed back. You know, it's
like walking into a place and getting just IPAs the whole time. But
yeah, I mean, idiot's work here is what the sign should say about right? You know, because we're not going to try and talk to you about any of the things that really matter, like terpene quality, who grew it, and what the circumstances, and what's the genetic heritage. You're just looking at one single number. I mean,
I smoke a huge amount of weed, and I can't tell you the THC content of any of it.
Mm-hmm. Who cares?
I know who grew it. I knew where it came from. I know what.
You know it tastes good. You know it works.
Red Center Farm was just on here. That's an excellent quality. You know, Michigan Terp Farms. When I look at certain brand names, I'm already assured. It doesn't matter what some silly label says. I have confidence in that particular brand. Redemption is another one. If I see Driven Grow on a package, I know it's going to have some great quality inside it. So, you know, those are the things that matter. But when you're trying to sell based on superficiality, then that's the kind of mindset that you're in. 25 and up, baby. That's it.
You know, actually, with Rick, you touched upon something.
Paul is making a great point, but we cannot hear him, unfortunately.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, how about now? Okay, so the thing that we talked about that you touched on was the allowing micro businesses to essentially do business with each other, right? And that has such a larger impact on the industry itself, in the fact that you're giving a fraternity for all of the micro businesses that all the retailers, all the growers, and all the processors already have. They can already do business and cooperate with each other. Through that, they're establishing their own standards. So with the micro business being the reflection of the caregivers, it would be the ability for them to coordinate together would create a standard for the micro businesses that you would know that to say, okay, well, if these micro businesses can cooperate, that you're going to have some sort of standard or at least some integrity control within all those businesses across the state and throughout the state. but then they're also not pinned to that big problem that we talked about earlier, which is, what if I run out of flower? What if I have a crop failure? Well, knowing that I don't have to close my doors and change my books or lay off employees because I can go to my friend in the next town over, it's going to, again, serve the whole purpose of the MRTMA, which is to defeat having to go to the black market. And if the micro business is really the ideal business setting for the Upper Peninsula and the more rural areas, if you have and let's just say for argument that the micro business is the only retail outlet, and they have a crop failure or they have a really good week, where do those patrons go to? They're forced now into the black market without having the cooperation of other micro businesses to help out their neighbor. So, there's a philosophical approach that I think the legislature would be able to latch onto that I think reflects a market reality.
Yeah, or some other way of handling that issue if it were to come,
Right. Empower the micro businesses. Empower them as they are, because they go through the same inspections, they pay the same licensing, they're subject to the same CRA regulations. Empower them to have the ability to unionize in a sense and to join a fraternity just like the other licenses do.
So earlier, Theo put out his information about how he contacted his rep and the information if other people were in that district. Blue Kiss Gardens is now saying they completed determining, if you need to, you can go to the .gov site. You can determine who your rep is, how to contact them, and that type of stuff. And then you can just do it. You can leave a message, or somebody may answer the phone, or you can do it tomorrow morning. You can send off an email. Probably calling at this point, at this late hour, probably get somebody's attention a little bit more sometimes. If you're going to send an email, put in the subject line, vote no on House Bill 5512. So if they don't have time to go through it all, they can at least see that.
And they do take notice.
Yep, and it helps. It's close, it's close. So if you get a hold of your rep and your rep goes, yeah, I heard from a couple of my constituents, so I'm gonna be in opposition, and makes the decision based on that, then that was maybe the vote we needed to stop the bill from going through. It's worth doing, man, and it helps.
When Jamie talks about it's close, with a voter-directed initiative like we have with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, it requires a 3/4 supermajority vote in the House of Representatives to pass. So a regular 50% vote, that's pretty easy to attain. But the 3/4 supermajority, that's extremely rare. And they are struggling right now to get the votes in order to be able to pass that. And that's why even now, more than ever before, a couple of people making phone calls could actually tip the difference, because the standard is so much higher to make this kind of change. So please, if you have a moment, take Theo's advice, follow his example, and make that call.
And Blue Kiss Gardens also.
The dog has a blue tongue, by the way. The dog has a blue tongue. That's kind of weird. Go ahead.
This whole argument goes back to the whole, everybody's spinning their wheels, but until you get everybody's input, if this is really where we want to go and things are going to change, or people have concerns that they should change, until all the stakeholders on both sides are brought together and have the opportunity to have these conversations, all of this is bullshit. It's all bullshit. We're spinning our legislative wheels, wasting taxpayers' money. And until a real conversation that, it's just like the Republicans passing legislation that's never going to get signed into law, right? They have no way of overriding the veto. We're just wasting money, and we're churning through tax funds that could be spent better. If this is an issue that truly needs to be taken up, everybody should have a voice, not just some lobbyist in a cheap suit who feels that they have, the market share to back them up. And it's just bullshit.
Maybe a local initiative in Norvell Township. Norvell Township.
Go ahead, Trish.
Go ahead, Trish. Sorry.
Well, it was just kind of sparked a thought in my head when Anton was talking about lobbyists in suits. It's not just lobbyists in suits. It's judges that can sign up for a program in 2 days and have a courtroom too. For example, I had been writing down this timeline just so that way I wouldn't skip out on it. But as we were talking about 5512, so the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Program, which is the connection on whether they can or cannot do things within their courtrooms. It's apparently where they can make all the rules and regulations on a federal basis. 2019, they told them they couldn't use medical marijuana or have medical marijuana patients within the program. And then in January 2020, there was an issue, a question that came from the Pennsylvania courts, and then they did get a response. In that response, no, I also take into consideration that Pennsylvania also has opioid use disorder and treatment as something that is on their list of conditions for medical marijuana.
So Trish, I just want to interject. I also know that in Maine, there was an issue in like a school district that also got some blowback from that 2019.
Oregon, there's one in Oregon. They're all over the place. It's just really hard to find them, and you'll find this when you follow me with them. So in 2020, January 2020, that clarification was sent to Pennsylvania. That information did not get spread across all the Pennsylvania courts, which was what became the problem for the Tyler Cordero case, which at that point he was using medical marijuana and he was told he could not use it anymore. He fell back into substance use, and then that couple weeks later or whatnot, he had overdosed and died. So there are two directions that this situation went. First off, this has probably never been talked about if his mother didn't actually take the time with her attorney to actually follow the guidelines and steps to get to the correct people to have that conversation. So she had the conversation. It was brought back up in Pennsylvania and from the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services that clarification was made in 2020. Pennsylvania's response to that was that it was an informal piece of information. That information is emailed to them, and you could figure that would just kind of be spread across all the judges and all the courtrooms. So she did the work to make it so that way people are able to use drug court if they are using medical marijuana as a substance abuse measure. However, the big argument now in Pennsylvania is why wasn't that information actually spread across to the masses? So if it was clarified in 2020 and this young man died in September 2020, and there were 64 people rejected from being in drug court at that time between those two spaces, why would we want to let the public know that that's the experience they're going to have? Secondly, one of the stipulations they had in the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services is that the participant would agree to possibly use evidence-based material or medicines and whatnot to, so basically it's like you can come in here, but we're going to want you to try to get into our MATS program. So with all that being said, this clarification has been put into like 3 or 4 different states, and now there's actually a big court hearing about it court case about it in Pennsylvania about why it was actually not distributed in January 2020 to all the drug courts across the United States. And those federal guidelines were provided at one point, but then of course the argument is that it was informal. So who's to blame at this point for this poor boy's death or this consideration or situation that should have been taken care of? We're probably not going to see a result from that for a long time. So then you go on past that, why are they fighting the situation so much? Well, of course, you have to go backwards and you have to do a lot of reverse work. But at the same time, too, if you dig a little bit deeper, I'm not going to go any further than this, but if you go and dig a little bit deeper, go look at what the fiscal report for the MAX program is coming up and moving forward. And that's all I have to say. So 5512 to me is not just the fact that it's keeping, good people from going through a program that may be useful, but at the same time, too, the fact that there was some unfortunate information that was held back. The transparency of the situation was an issue, too, as well. And it goes a little bit further, I believe, than just that situation. But at this point, if you think about it, Pennsylvania has allowed people who use medical marijuana to use that as a medicine or an alternative for their opioid use disorder. Think about what that will do to a lot of drug courts.
If they're not willing to, at this point, a lot of these specialty courts, if you're not willing to accept people into these programs that truly desperately need to be a part of them, maybe it's time we talk about defunding them.
Well, there's
funding their budgets. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what I was bringing up earlier, because there's 3 or 4 Senate bills that just passed where they're actually going to have a committee that is going to be created within the legislative branch that is going to start making decisions on how the substance abuse programs or opioid use is actually monitored, how it's directed, it's going to actually spread apart. So for me, the way that I see it is that says what we currently have in place, where we have millions and billions of dollars funneling into it, isn't actually working. And when your numbers say, oh, well, we graduated 1,640 people from this program or whatnot, you have 70 courts.
Right.
How do we have billions and millions of dollars going into this program when the success rate of it is this and that? And then if you look at the data from drug courts, because there's millions, I would say that's a little dramatic, but thousands and thousands of studies done on this. And the reason why they're doing these studies is because there's no transparency in the data that comes from that program. That program only has to tell you where they came from, what they used, how long they were on it, whether black, white, green, red, female, male, and that's it. Like, they don't have to provide you any data. So it's not, so what they're basically saying is call a spade, as far as I'm concerned, because they're saying that we can't use medical marijuana for, our use to get over substance abuse. But then again, you're not going to give us the data that lets us know that your program is actually necessarily doing any better. So that's, I'm further down in the rabbit hole in that situation too. But of course, like I said, I'm backing a representative or a person that's running for a representative right now, and there's a lot more things.
And so I don't know if you mentioned the resolution of you did allude to how they changed the policy again in 20 or 21, and that was nothing interferes with getting the money as long as you don't use it to support the use of medical marijuana. And they could still use it in conjunction with the medication if they want to try it. Now, what they say in Pennsylvania is that you can use that as your treatment. You can use it. And if you look how much money flows through the pharmaceutical companies into the MATS program and through the judges and through the federal money and where all the money's coming in from this, that, and the next thing, it's made to fail. That's my opinion. It's so
made to fail.
Theo was asking why the feds have the influence on these courts, and that's because they're concerned about funding. Yeah.
Supremacy
war
clause.
on drugs. When they started the crack cocaine, it's the war on drugs.
But I do like to point out that there's been very few revocations of funds.
That's always the threat, right? It's the purse string threat. It's mom gives you $20 and maybe take it back.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on, though, Paul. Many times it's the threat used by the entity voicing it, not the entity who has the money. The federal government is not saying, do this or we're going to take this money away from you.
It's a false flag, yeah.
Right. What's happening is that these local people are saying, oh, if we do this, we're going to lose our federal money. And I've been telling the University of Michigan for years, no, you won't.
No.
The
You're going to rat yourself out?
It's not going to take away your federal funding because you allow hash bash to happen. Are you out here?
100%.
But that's what they do. And
it's always the threat.
Right. And the sad part is that it makes sense to all these people involved because they understand the power of the dollar and how it coming from the federal government to us every time there's a grant available. That's how we militarized our police forces. That's why these communities have armor-plated vehicles that once belonged to the military, is because we made it possible. And, it sounded like a good idea at the time. Well, guess what? Some of this stuff isn't,
Yeah.
These programs only work as long as they're addicts and alcoholics. And that's basically what it comes down to. They don't care about marketing, advertising, this, that, or the next thing. They'll give you all the data on that, just act like they show that you care, or that they care. But the bottom line of it is that it's just a machine feeding a machine. And it's keeping the cycle going. We will never see the correct data that we need to see in harm reduction and alternatives that are available to us as long as we continue to be, disabled from doing the research and whatnot. I know there are some opportunities coming available, but there's mostly coming through the DEA. And what is that? Like having a judge tell you whether you can and can't take a medication.
Well, the court itself is the biggest addict, and their drug is money. So when you start looking at the juxtaposition that presents, right, that they cannot even tolerate a threat to their money source, a threat to their supply line of their drug, their green, non-injectable, substance. They won't even tolerate a threat to it. They react as if you're poking them in the eye.
I agree.
So in the 5512, of course, continues to need in the next few hours as much contact with your people from Michigan's state house rep as possible. It really could help.
That affects veterans courts too. And I know Anton's about here, and we talk about that. And we have not mentioned it, I don't think, on this show, but it's not just drug courts, it's veterans courts too. So
and pediatric, I think. Or not pediatric, sorry, but like a juvenile.
Specialty courts, they call it.
I've never heard one good thing about veterans. I deal with veterans all over the country, in the world, in fact, right? And, a lot of times the common theme is PTSD. PTSD, what's rooted in this disease that people are getting from combat and their service, is being aggressive or they get into a fight and they get this violent charge on their record, and now they're not eligible to go into the veteran court, which was why the whole thing was established, to help people who have these afflictions. And we're not just talking a few people. We're talking, upwards of 40% of veterans who came back have a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress. And these courts are doing nothing to help the veterans, and not to mention that bleeds over into mental health court as well. So you have two courts that are just almost useless in the way that they're trying to achieve justice. It's not justice. They're just creating the system, this endless cycle of people going in and out of these programs or sitting in jail, and it's sad, and
they shouldn't be calling them courts. You're right. They should be called rehabilitation programs. If there are that many people that are going through that much trouble, why do you put the word court at the end of it? That's a fear-based, that's a directive, that's a program, and some people can't be programmed like that. It takes time and care and health and love and all the other good things above us to actually
health issue, not a criminal issue.
Exactly. And a lot of times the people have substance abuse issues, it's because of their atmosphere, or the internal damage they have within themselves to self-medicate. And I only have that to say because of my full experience living in Genesee County, being at the age that I am. One of the things that they continuously did in my generation was provide opiates to people for pain relief. So at this point, if you look at the rate of death as far as overdoses go, and it's huge within my generation, and it has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of these people, particularly I know 5, and just off the top of my head, who were prescribed Vicodins for a lengthy amount of time all through high school, soccer players, hockey players, you name it, get off their parents' insurance programs, and then went out on the street, and that's the only thing that they could get their hands on, their regular insurance. So that comes to an insurance issue too. So there wasn't the opportunity for anybody to go and rehab for any type of addiction from that situation, and then it moved them into another type of addiction underneath the same circumstance, and then that therefore made them an addict. So now they're an addict, and now you put them in a drug court or you punish them. That is not the experience that these people need to have. When we don't start thinking about what we need to do to heal the situation and keep as much structure out of it, we're going to fail. There's a lot more people that are going to get sick and die from the situation.
Well, there's a disconnect with the courts and who they are serving. And that's what they don't understand their people. And that's the hardest part, is that there isn't this, in domestic violence cases, there's always a liaison that will help the other side understand the court process. If there was a liaison, and even a veteran as well, that would say, hey, Veterans Court, I'm going to be the go-between, the communicator between the individual and the court to make this process not such of a penalty or a punishment. And Anton speaks to it, is that these specialty courts aren't really geared for necessarily these kind of people anyway. I mean, I get a lot of veterans, and I've had veterans, especially, when in the illegality of marijuana days, they'd come out of the military and they'd have no other way of making money. They'd have no other job, no other opportunity. But hey, their brother or their cousin knows how to get them a quarter pound of something, and it ultimately gets them in trouble. And when you go to these veterans courts, they're not treating the veterans themselves. They are treating what they think the veteran has gone through, which is as offensive and as much of a disconnect as me trying to decide what's best for Anton. I know nothing about that situation. I didn't walk those paths. And that's the, that to me would be the easiest part to reform, is to say, hey, look, this is, you spent 20 years thanking me for my service and falling all over me with free cheeseburgers. Isn't it about time you really responded to our needs here? And that always reminds me, Anton, there's a T-shirt out there that says, VA, giving veterans a second chance to die for their country.
Yeah. Look, when you go to veterans court, what's the first thing that happens? Paul, you could probably speak to this. They say, go to the VA and follow the guidance, take the pills. If you don't take the pills, we're going to put you in jail. If I've never been arrested. I've never been to jail or anything like that. But I will say this, that if they did tell me this, I must go to the VA and take the pills. Say, fuck you, take me to jail. You know what I mean? Because again, they're not looking. Look, I'll tell you, as a veteran, my life really changed for the better the day I took off the fentanyl patch that the VA had prescribed to me, and I dumped the oxy down the toilet, and then I dumped the morphine down the toilet. That's really when my life went for the better, right? But you can't stress these kinds of things to the courts, because they're a law enforcement function. They're not a rehabilitation function. They're not geared towards it. There's ways to hold people accountable outside of a legal setting, right? We have ways structured within treatment programs and through therapy programs that will hold people accountable, yet put them on the path where they're actually, healing, instead of worrying about going against the court. What good does that do to people? I don't get it.
Yeah, we have one broken governmental institution trying to prop up another broken governmental institution. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, it's unfair to the veterans too, because it assumes that all veterans are the same. I mean, I have clients. I had one client that was the hand-to-hand combat instructor for special forces. That guy was just no truck mechanic, right? So his military experience was night and day from the guy that just shows up to turn a wrench, right? They are both veterans. They both get the same DD-214. They are both eligible for the same services afterwards. But my one client that you couldn't make any sudden moves near, or you'd have a pencil against your throat in a heartbeat, that's not the same veteran as the guy that knows how to fix a diesel engine any size.
We as a country made a decision back in the day when the Constitution was formed that we were going to have a military, and we had to honor that commitment. We knew we had to train men and women that were going to go and do the most despicable, most violent, most horrific things to other people in other countries at the behest of the protection, and the belief that, and then we train these people in these categories and these jobs, and then we discharge them a lot of times with no support, with no benefits, because you got to fight with the VA for 20 years before you can actually get anything out of them. We turn them loose on the streets. We take these people who have been doing these jobs, and there's just no way to put them. It just doesn't work. It's oil and water. And then to hold these folks accountable, fine. I mean, if they have to answer for whatever they've done, fine. But at least let's come up with a support system that's actually making an impact in the person's life, right?
Well, Anton, and while they're still inside the service itself, oftentimes military justice is cruel to the point where it oftentimes disadvantages people who've been trained warriors and are asked to stand down during peacetime. And then may step out of line while they're still in uniform, and then get discharged and don't have the services of a VA available or any guidance whatsoever. It seems as if the government itself is too easy to shed people that once they've trained them to behave in a certain way.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. When I came home from Iraq, I'll never forget. I got off the plane, and then they do like a debriefing type of thing. And the advice that I got from all the people present, these generals and colonels, they told, if you cheated on your spouse, keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. You don't want to lose your family. That's literally the advice. That was my debriefing and my reintegration training when I came back to society, right? It's bullshit. they're not set up to do it. It's and
that's
it's
a little
not
bit more efficient than many hours of therapy and.
Yeah, that was the thing. Save your family. And in the meantime,
live an eternal lie.
In the meantime, we had soldiers, killing their wives or killing their, it was a mess. This was back in 2005, and I don't really believe it's changed much since. People coming back with the same damn problems.
I did get the same advice when I left prison, by the way.
Yes, I'm sure. In the all-male prison that you had, if you cheated on your wife there, you probably should have kept that to yourself. But now you're on the show at Jazz Cabbage, and we all know. So, no. Fact of the matter is, we oftentimes train people to ignore responsibility and to avoid consequence, and to justify doing it in some of the craziest ways. I mean. Every Karen video you see on YouTube, right? There's somebody there who thought they were righteous when they decided to bitch and moan about some trivial little thing that bothered them during the day. We train people to do the most bizarre things nowadays, and then we reward them by giving them attention, whether it's positive or negative. They get attention, and that's really what they were pouring out for in the first place.
Very good. I'm going to say goodbye, guys. I appreciate it. I'll see you next week.
All right, Paul. Thanks, man.
Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
I know that the 5512 has a sense of urgency, or hope that we're imparting that to people, and a few people have said that they've contacted their lawmakers, and that's much appreciated. The more of that, the better, and more of passing that word, the better too. But we are getting some word that some of the other shitty bills that we've had to deal with earlier in this session might resurface. I don't know if this means a new introduction from the Senate side or exactly what would go down, but these big money interests, MCMA apparently fired more people, a PR firm, to assist them in kind of taking it from the Senate angle, where they probably have more support, could maybe get it through there and then have that momentum coming back to the House. We think that's the strategy. But go ahead, Rick.
I think the strategy is you want to try and get things from one place to the other as quickly as possible. So what you would do is you would hold the House vote on one day if you could guarantee that you could get a Senate vote on it in committee as quickly as possible, and then a Senate overall vote as quickly as possible too. So you'd like to set all three of those in a time frame motion before you have the vote for 5301 in the House of Representatives. So it makes sense if that's their strategy to get it done. Clearly what they'd like to do if they're going to pass. By the way, for our listeners who aren't familiar with what we're talking about, House Bill 5301 is part of a package that proposes some changes. It's incorrectly named the Cannabis Safety Act. It would make some dramatic changes to the patient caregiver dynamic here in Michigan. And it also requires that 3/4 supermajority vote because it would change our medical marijuana law itself.
It would peel back existing rights that caregivers have now, and those participating in the caregiver system would be compromised while they say that it's designed to protect against illegal activity. So they want to hurt people that are following the rules as a way to help with illegal activity. And then there's another section that would purportedly allow caregivers to bring product back to market, but it's completely dysfunctional. It's just there as smoke and mirrors. Go ahead, Rick.
Just like 5512, the people who are trying to push this legislation have devised a very interesting marketing scheme for it in order to try and make it appear as if they're trying to give caregivers an opportunity into the market when in actuality, as Jamie mentioned, it's not functional. Just like 5512 is proposed to give people who use medical marijuana an opportunity to use it while they're going through the court system, which technically they already have. So
just respect their immunity and their process that they went through to use the medicine.
Yeah, but 5301 is so controversial, and we're at a prime now where it's an election year. And what people who are up for election don't want is have these controversial issues thrown in their face when it's close to time for things like ballots to be filled out comes down. So we are now in April. May is just around the corner. August is when we do primaries here in Michigan. So they'd like to get anything resolved as quickly as possible if it's controversial. So it would make sense that they would try to make sure that before they take a House vote, that it has a very smooth and easy landing in the Senate So for them to appeal to the senators means that they're planning step 2 and step 3 of that 3-step process. And that scares me because we absolutely hate these caregiver bills.
They're bringing in very competent, connected people to the system.
Yeah, but there are a lot of, I'm going to pitch this out here so that we're talking about it. I'd like to mention that we do have a lot of really great candidates that are running for the House coming up. And I'm really excited about this election, not only because I'm in it, but because it's going to be a shit show. So,
who's running in the 68th district?
Yeah, so she's in the 68th. I believe, I don't know what the district number is, but I do know it's in Grand Rapids. There is a really great candidate out there. Her name is Lily Cheng Shuling, and she is running up there. She's I
think that's the 72nd. I'm not positive, but she's been on the show. The last election, she was running, and she came on the show. Yep. She's
obviously been paying attention. What's going on with 5300 through 5302. She does make mention of it. She has been advocating for a long time about harm reduction and things of that nature. So I'd like to throw that out there. And of course, always to say Amy Carter, who will be in the 68th district, who's also advocating for patients and caregivers as well through pediatrics in the mental health system. So these are things I feel like that a lot of people need to really pay attention and focus on during this election. Because it always seems to be the fallback on pretty much everything that we have going on in life, your mental health. Very important.
And Jimmy Wilson is running in the Ypsilanti area. I don't know what that district number is, but yes, we could get a composition of lawmakers that is much better than what we have now.
It's coming.
It's a more sensible policy discussion and law changes maybe going. I mean, might be too much to ask, but.
And the reason that we're having this conversation is because a press release was issued yesterday by the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association announcing that, unlike what we'd heard rumored throughout Lansing, their current executive director, Steve Linder, was not being terminated or stepping down. He was actually accepting that as a co-director, that firm that we mentioned previously, Byram Fisk. So in that press release where they announced that co-directorship, they also took like 2 paragraphs out of the 5 paragraphs to say how they were going to rekindle this battle for these particular bills, which they basically got their ass kicked last year. And this is the last opportunity for them to make good on the promise they made to all of their membership. But the reason we're having this conversation is because they themselves said they're going to rekindle this too. And Jamie reports earlier in our show that it seems as if there's a meeting going on today between some super bigs in the Senate over these particular sets of bills that we basically thought were not going to move anywhere.
They're going to the Democrats because they need the 3/4. So they can establish that, and then you got that type of momentum there. A lot of money being poured into it. They got to keep trying. 68th district, as we were saying, is the one that Amy Carter is running in. She has the backing of the party. She was the first one to step up, and she has got a very legitimate chance of. She is primary. There are some other people that came on, but she does have a legitimate chance of winning this. So support there. And then she asked if we have a list of candidates, and I don't have a list. I could talk about some I know about, but as we did last election cycle, we will have a lot of those people on the show.
Yeah, we will. I will have a list. I'm following them also.
And Steve Linder and his ilk are puke bags.
Perma sleep number 2. Steve Linder, of course, the reason that we haven't seen Steve Linder for quite some time is not only did his cannabis efforts fail in the legislature to pass this very important thing, which seems to be the whole identity of the MCMA at this point, to try to get these bills passed, but also his association in the past with the Republican Party has led to a lot of questions about campaign finance and other monetary issues, which seems to be under the investigation of the Michigan State Police, the Attorney General, and potentially the federal government right now too. So Steve Linder needed someone else to come in and help take over the administration of the MCMA in order to have it still run, because he's so tainted and chapped as an individual that no one would stand next to him in that. Which is also why, as we mentioned earlier, I think maybe in the pregame talk that we had, the MCMA's choice of having a firm, Byram Fisk, represent as a co-director is extremely odd. The MCMA is made up of all of these very big cannabis companies here in the state of Michigan, some of the largest cultivators and retailers, and none of them were willing to step up to the co-directorship position because having their name associated with the MCMA is such a terrible stain on the marketplace. The boycotts that we've done against these particular companies have been very effective, and they know that their brand is tainted. Just like Green Peak had to switch over to Skymint because their brand was so tainted, no one would shop their stores. This has been a problem. So at this point, we can think that we've won in several levels, but I think, Jamie, we're not done fighting yet.
No, but they did have to hire a PR firm as opposed to, you know, actual.
Out of all
they have so many people that are highly competent and connected in that group. I mean, again, they are battling the truth. They're battling a lot of us, you know, trying to get good information to the decision makers, and hope that makes a difference for those who aren't purely transactional. And it does kind of work, but it's a really tough challenge.
But in an election year, though, money talks. And when you have the kind of bread that these particular cannabis companies have and the MCMA has, that's a really huge carrot. And sometimes a candidate will take a little bit of a beating if it comes along with a great big check. So they would make some associations they normally wouldn't in order to stay competitive in a race where they see themselves falling behind in the fundraising area. So this is the real danger of having elections the way that we do in the United States of America, where we can have dark money that can pour in and literally take things away from a deserving candidate like Amy Carter just because they pour money into somebody else who happens to have a position on one subject that someone happens to like. So,
Another reason we need to overhaul the campaign finance laws.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'd love to see the federal government pay all campaign finances, to have no contributions from corporations or individuals. Just let people run on their values and their straights, give them all the same amount of money. And let's have a level, even playing field and get the best people in office, not just the people who are the best at fundraising. That's why we only have two parties in the United States of America, because no third party can raise enough money independently in order to compete with the fundraising machines that the Democrats and the Republicans have. It's not as if their ideas aren't any good. It's just that they can't fundraise on an equitable level. And that's broken. So... it's broken. We need a Band-Aid.
Deemed the show good. So
wow, Steve.
We'll take that.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. I always enjoy our Tuesday afternoons here. Anton and I had a Monday morning with the director of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency and about, I don't know, half a dozen of his staff.
I haven't gotten any of that. Thank you very much, because I was...
Yep. And one of the things that they talked about is Anton's being called from around the nation by potential researchers looking to do research on veterans with marijuana in regards to a grant program that the state of Michigan has. And Anton, you're really getting a lot of feedback on that, and you're talking to people all over the place on this. Isn't that true?
It is. I mean, I was actually shocked. I don't know how my information is getting out there, but I mean, I had an Ivy League school call me the other day, and they're asking, and it's interesting kind of because I'm getting so many calls from kind of so many different areas of research. It's interesting how they're trying to set up these different studies. And, you know, I think, Rick, what I had put out, my comment to the whole thing is, whatever it is we do, we need to make sure we are researching real world veteran use. So I think there's a lot of buzz about let's research how these individual cannabinoids or THC levels or all these kind of these kind of off topic things that need to be researched. But really what we need is research on whole flower, RSO, edibles, things that veterans are actually using. Because we want to be able to take this data that in the past it hasn't had the opportunity to establish good data, because, you know, they had the study down in Arizona where they were using cannabis taken from, I don't even know how to call it cannabis, but from the University of Mississippi. And that study created poor data because they did not have access to
THC
exactly stuff. Right. So I think that if we can get some research going where we're actually looking at what veterans are using,
Yeah, we also talked. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was going to say, like, and I don't know any details, but people should watch Smoke and Rope tomorrow.
Yeah, Nate Darling said he's going to perhaps do a reveal about a collab between the Redemption Foundation and maybe your special project, Anton, the Hero Project.
Yeah. So tune in for details tomorrow on.
What time, you guys? Do you know?
1, I believe it's 1 p.m.
1 o'clock. Okay. Hey, on that note, I gotta go, you guys. I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Trish. Thanks for all your research and information.
Okay. All right. No, I'm here for it. Let's do some more.
Right.
Talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know. And one of the other things we talked about briefly was trying to get a system set up in this computer so that you could take one of these little teeny labels that you've got on all of these cannabis products that we have from the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, throw the batch number onto a website and determine whether or not there's a recall or there's been a hold on that particular stuff. We see recalls and holds on merchandise coming more frequently now than ever before with the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, and it seems like it's not that difficult of a thing to set up, and it's something that we're still increasing their awareness about. But Anton, I mean, conversion oil, we got conversion oil stopped. There's been a lot of things we've done, a hearing on remediation labeling. I think our involvement in the Consumer Connection once a month with the director has really yielded some good results.
I think it's been awesome, because they've been listening to our feedback. And, at the end of the day, whether they actually implement our ideas or not, I appreciate the fact that they at least listen and they consider things. And I think there's been some really good conversations that couldn't be had outside of that consumer group. Because at the end of the day, this whole thing exists for the consumers, right?
Right on.
Are they getting input from the industry at all? Do we know?
Yeah. They have different groups that they have with different things. They have a testing industry group where they take a meet once a month like they do with the consumers. They have it's not transport. There's another industry that they have a group like that with too. And then of course there's the social equity ongoing work groups and several things too. But so they do take input. They have a work group with Native American groups as well too now. So they're really expanding.
Awesome. So we're getting toward the end, and I have those 2 tickets for Reggae on the River, which is a licensed cannabis event. Mel and Nancy Float Productions. They've got, I believe they have a Marley on tap for music. And
everybody's got a Marley this summer.
And I'm going to be there with Glenn, and we have 2 tickets to give away. So if you have, or if you will, contact your state representative by tomorrow. The first one to message me on Facebook will get those 2 tickets. And Brandy's getting in that they have a tribal work group also. Yep. And I know she participates with you guys too in that.
Yep, Brandy certainly does as well. Yep, and we'll be joined by Mitzi Ruddock as next month, which will add a different perspective to the Consumer Connection, which I think we desperately need. So great work is being done by a lot of people right now, and we don't always get the attention that other people try and demand. So there's certain people in the industry right now that are so self-congratulatory that they're going back over their history and dragging out every single nugget of anything that they've ever done ever and trying to portray it as a gigantic revelatory moment in our history. So they're allowed to do that if they want to, but I'm just,
what's easier is, there's some people have done some stuff at different times and it's been significant. We can recognize it, but it's taken tens of thousands of us over decades to move this fucking needle, man. And, thanks everybody who pitches in how and when they can.
And the people before the medical program too, that laid the foundations for the 2008 to be successful, and everybody that's carried a petition for any of the drives that we've ever done. There's just a million people that actually, there's about 9.7 million people that we can thank here in the state of Michigan, because everybody's essentially at one point or another seemed to support us, whether they intended to or not.
So, yeah. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, anything you want to make sure you get in before we shut it down?
No, not really. I'm getting ready to head out to the Big Clouds Cashmere event in Jones this weekend. So
right on.
That'll be kind of cool.
It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I mean, that was a focus. People could check out Medical Mondays last night too to get some more details on it. Rick Anstis and Dallas, a few others were on there talking about it.
Are they doing camping at that event? Or is that
they got camping. They got you can camp in your car. You can get a campsite. They got day tickets. They got music for 3 days. It'll be kind of cool.
Sounds like they have some decent bands too.
Decent bands, yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
They don't have a Marley though, do they?
No, they don't have a Marley.
All right, everybody else has one.
And Adam called out for tributes to be brought to him while he's hanging up.
Actually, I've seen it before, Adam. So
yeah, you felt pretty good about it.
I learned a lesson if I don't ask.
Yeah.
Anton, anything you want to get in before we?
No, if you got the chance, check out Smoke and Rope tomorrow, 1:00. I think it's cool. We have a nice collaboration on the horizon with Redemption, and as usual, the Redemption folks are stand up, and I look forward to hanging out with them more.
Right on. So obviously a lot of people joined us today. Ida's show, Light a Joint with Ida, Mondays at 11. She's going to highlight women in the industry and talk about interesting subjects. I'm going to watch it.
I'm going to watch
it out. Thanks to Eric. I'm also going to go to Winewood Organics and get some bubble hash, if not some flour too. And Paul was on. Latrisha, obviously, great research that Trish shared with us today. So thanks everybody for a good show. And Rick, if you don't mind wrapping it up.
Well, I think the call to activism today that you heard on the show is one which has both a sense of urgency for the immediate 5512, but also a sense of caution for long term. We're not done in these fights, people, and there are legislation that's pending that will be introduced, which potentially could move during an election year like this, where sometimes they like to take things and fast track it. Stay loose, stay alert, and whenever we ask, please respond. When we say call. When we say write a letter. When we give you a link, click on the link and do what we need you to do, because the support that you give to us in the way that we try to fight for your rights it's irreplaceable. It really is. And thanks for your ongoing and continuing support, and hopefully we've earned it going forward too.
Right on. I agree. Figure out who your house rep is, give them a call, tell them to vote no on 5512.
Yep.
Thanks everybody. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
See ya.